Question for my skeptic friends and atheist friends. What sort of evidence would you need to prove that there's a creator? Would the creator need to come from the clouds of heaven? Would he need to terrify you in a dream or a vision? Would he need to walk through a wall to talk to you face to face? Like, would you need to put your finger in his side? Like, what exactly would you need? What sort of proof or evidence would you need?
The answer to your question would be for the agnostic, the skeptic, the atheist to leave all sense of critical thinking, to diminish their powers of reasoning, and just accept the indoctrination. You see, although many may say that the atheist or the agnostic would require some type of observation that can be tested, that actually does not work. It will not work, because critical thinking would allow for you to say that any sufficient amount of technology would be able to demonstrate a ghostly figure walking through a wall. Any sufficient technology will be able to implant dreams of fear in your mind. Any sufficient level of technology would be able to produce a body that you can then put your finger into the side, which also indicates that you're speaking of Jesus. So any sufficient amount of technology will be able to replicate the things that have been written in this book, just as a play can replicate what's in this book. A movie can replicate what's in this book. Special effects can replicate what's in this book. So therefore, that would be considered observable. But with rational thinking and critical thinking, you would recognize that there is the possibility that this is just highly sophisticated technology that is basing something on what an indoctrination book has already described. So therefore, even though many atheists or agnostics may have answered that question by saying something observable, that truly still is not an answer. We would have to leave all critical thinking and reasoning. Because in our critical thinking and reasoning, there are two philosophies that would ultimately go against any type of proof of a creator, but it also demonstrates that the books that you believe, the books that you follow, does not demonstrate the creator, if there is one. The Tao will be the first book. The first sentence in the Tao says that the way that can be named is no longer the way. The way that is described in a book can no longer be the way. So, and the moment you give it a name, the moment you write it down in a book and give it characteristics, you have shrunk what would be a creator into being only what is in the book, only what is within the name. When you make your God jealous, angry, when you make your God vengeful, then you are limiting that God by giving it that personality. When your God requires worship, requires animal and blood sacrifice, you have now defined this God into a personality that is more of something of man, more something of the understanding of man. And it is not providing a description of this God on a lower level so that we can understand. It is simply just making God into what man has decided for God to be. And therefore, when the Tao says that, you have now eliminated the possibility of Yahweh, Allah, Brahma, or any other being the creator. Because the creator, as the Kabbalion would say, or the Corpus Hermeticum in truth, the Kabbalion is a summary of, somewhat of a summary of the Corpus Hermeticum. But what the Hermetic thought process is that the all is unknowable and undefinable, and that the all must also exist outside of its creation, that all of its creation exists inside the mind of the all. And since being outside of all creation, it is not held to the standard of creation. And therefore it becomes unknowable and undefinable, because what is within the creation would never be able to observe, test, describe, or name the creation, the creator, because the creation can never be outside of the creation. The created can never be outside of the creation, and therefore never know the creator, describe the creator, have an understanding of the creator. And if the creator is not outside of the rules of the creation, then it too in itself is not the creator, because then it has to conform to what is inside of that universe. Think about it like this. Right now, I can create a universe inside my mind. That universe may have a rule in it that says that if a car reaches 88 miles per hour, it travels back in time. Or it may have a rule in it that says if you don't eat noodles with a yellow spoon, then you will die. Now, I on the outside cannot be held to the same. I can get in a car outside of the creation in my mind, drive past 88 miles per hour and never go back into time and continue to drive. I can eat noodles with a yellow spoon and I will not die. I cannot be held to the same standards of what I have created in my mind and the rules that I've created in my mind. So therefore, I am the creation outside. I am the creator outside of the creation. But the moment that you hold this God within side, it is no longer the creation. The moment this God has to have, the moment this God desires, then it is not, because it is the desires and the having to have, the need, that now rules it. Your God is ruled by jealousy. Your God is ruled by anger. Therefore, your God is not God. Your God has to wait thousands of years in order to enact the plan of a human sacrifice in order to give man grace, when he could have done that at the time frame of the flood, when he could have done that at the time frame of Adam and Eve. He could have sacrificed himself at the time frame of Adam and Eve, and the deal would be done. Grace would be given for all mankind leading forward. The messaging could have been taught then. But your God is on a linear timeline in the same way that we are on a linear timeline. So how can your God actions be that of a creator on a linear timeline, just like ours? And seemingly, your God can only enact things that are within the culture of the people by which he's talking to at that time. So he had to allow slavery at the time frame that most of society agreed with slavery, so that he was in lockstep with slavery. He had to diminish the role of women and their importance and their agency at the time frame that the culture diminished the role and agency of women. You see, your God has always been at the same mindset of the culture by which the people were existing, yet he can make rules of don't mix two linens, but he can't make a rule about slavery. He can make a rule about not eating shellfish and pork, but he can't make a rule about women being of their own agency, having their own agency. He can make a rule about stoning children if they're disobedient to their parents, but he cannot make a rule against genocide. So you see, your God demonstrates that he is based on being written in a book by man. Therefore, if he can be described in a book, he is no longer the way. He has names like Yahweh, Jehovah. If he has a name, he cannot be God, cannot be the creator, because he can only be what that name is. If his name is Yahweh, he is only Yahweh and a description of Yahweh. If his name is Brahma, he is only Brahman and the name and the description of Brahman. If he is Allah, he can only be the name and the description of Allah. Plain and simple. Whether it is a name or a title, that is all that God can be. So there is none without us leaving our critical thinking, leaving our reasoning, our rationality, and giving in to the doctrine for whatever reason a person would desire to give up their agency. That is the only way we would ever believe in your God. So y'all have a great day. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.